When I was in third grade, I had the opportunity to start learning a foreign language. I originally wanted to learn Spanish, but once I realized the class was full, I decided to try Chinese, and I absolutely loved it. Ever since then, year by year, I've been trying to learn a little bit more Chinese, and in the process, I've learned a ton about Chinese culture. So, 中国, or China, is also known as the People's Republic of China. China is a very unique country, filled with skyscrapers, beautiful mountains, and a lot of people, about 1.4 billion. It's the third largest country, and the Great Wall of China is the largest man-made structure in the world. It's 5,500 miles long. Mandarin Chinese is the oldest written language in the world. It has been around for at least 6,000 years. In order to truly be able to read Chinese, you need to be able to recognize 2,000 to 3,000 characters. The following pictures just show how people learn Chinese. This first one, you're supposed to follow a specific stroke order. I wrote ni hao 2 different ways. The first one was the correct stroke order, the second one was just random. So you're supposed to start right to left and then top to bottom. So the first one, it just looks a little bit neater, proportionate, and the bottom one, the lines don't really match up, parts of it are too small, and it just looks kind of messy. So when learning Chinese, you're really supposed to focus on the stroke order so you can be able to write neatly and be able to communicate. This book is kind of a traditional style Chinese book. You're supposed to read it from top to bottom, right to left. They're modifying it now, but it's pretty interesting because it's just really so different compared to American books and English. The Chinese government is communist. They've ruled over China since 1949. The branches of government are the executive, judicial, legislative, and military, but they're all controlled by the government. The current president is Xi Jinping, and he has created an anti-corruption campaign to really help with what's going on in China. Communism really does produce corruption, and I don't think they'll ever be able to really get rid of it, especially when the government's trying. When they have complete control, they have the ability to manipulate anything they want. Censorship is a major problem in China. Some social media sites are actually blocked, like Twitter and Facebook, and even YouTube, and Google is heavily censored, which is pretty sad, because you can learn a lot on the internet, and unfortunately people in China don't really get to know the truth, like about some protests that they really should know about. One time in 2009, there was a decent-sized region, Xinjiang, and one day all the citizens woke up and there was no internet. And the internet remained down for the next 10 months. And they never really recovered from that, which makes sense because I don't know how a country, even just a region, would survive without internet. We need to be able to communicate. People do business online, and it's just really unfortunate what happened to them, what the government did to the region, because everyone went out of business. People couldn't communicate with their families, and it's just really, really sad. And then according to the most recent report on internet censorship by Freedom House, China remains the world's worst abuser of internet freedom. So Chinese people have been protesting for decades. If you have heard of the Tank Man, you've probably heard of Tiananmen Square. So in 1989, there was a huge protest. People were protesting the communist government, and they wanted more democratic reforms. The Chinese army was sent, and and the soldiers opened fire on the protesters. Thousands of people were hurt or killed. We actually don't know an exact number because of how the government censors information. And if you look it up, if you look up the massacre, you won't find anything in China because they completely just wiped it, pretend that it never happened. And then Hong Kong is the one place where people have their freedom of speech and can protest and really just talk freely like in America, which is pretty sad that it's just Hong Kong. And they continue to fight for freedom every day. If you look in the news, you'll see it. It's still going on. The Chinese economy is the largest in the world. The economy produced $25.3 trillion in 2018. They are the world's biggest exporter, and the government claims they operate as a socialist market economy. Taxes are extremely high, and the standard of living is low. Since the standard of living is so low, the Chinese citizens get paid so much less. So American businesses outsource to China because it costs so much less to produce products. Then the government owns most of the stocks in China. So basically, if you're buying Chinese stocks, you're most likely just financing the government. One cool fact about China, stocks in general, is that there's some slang terms. So basically, Chinese citizens call American stocks Yankee stocks, and we have a slang term, I didn't know, panda stocks, which is actually pretty interesting and fun. China's largest trading partner is the U.S. China actually buys a lot of our debt and U.S. treasuries. Their growth is slowing down a little bit, but it's nothing to really be alarmed about. President Trump has imposed tariffs to help control China's unfair trade practices. This, when it first happened, it really hurt the economy, but in the long run, it's supposed to create more jobs in America and force China to treat us fairly. So China has the largest population in the world, and it's still growing. China has done away with the one-child policy and now has a two-child policy that took effect in 2017. This new policy has saved hundreds of thousands of young girls' lives. Usually girls were put up for adoption or just aborted because parents really just want men. They want to carry their name. They're very traditional. So this two-child policy is actually really great, but the population is super high and it causes problems, like traffic. In this last picture, this is a traffic jam right here. There's so many cars, the highways have to be huge, and then they actually don't really follow the traffic lights, which is interesting. They kind of just drive whenever, and like bikes and everyone, they just kind of just go whatever way, which is pretty dangerous, but they've gotten used to it, and because there's not much you can do when there's that many people and it's that overcrowded. So the environment has taken a huge hit in China. Industrialization has created air pollution, and which means the Chinese people face extremely major health risks. Some of the pollution actually goes across the Pacific into San Francisco, and it contributes to a third of the city's air pollution. And then another fact is that if you breathe freely in Beijing for one day, it would be equivalent to smoking 21 cigarettes, which is pretty insane. There's also been some major water shortages, and water pollution, of course, affects the citizens in a major way. Poverty is also a huge problem. More than 30 million people live in poverty according to the government, but without their faulty calculations, that number is actually a lot higher. People actually still live in caves in the mountains. About 40% of the population within China actually survive on less than $5.50 a day. So overall, China is just, it's a beautiful country, but the communist government makes life really hard for Chinese citizens. I encourage you to really learn about different countries, the economy, government, and just culture overall. Again, I love the Chinese culture, but the communist government causes a lot of problems. Like as the economy continues to grow and they make more money, the citizens still stay really poor. So it's really important just to know what's going around in the world and then see what mistakes other countries are making so we can do what's best for our country. Thank you.